humanist, secularist, atheist, and others of like ilk. They've always been here. But all through the course of our history, their voice and their views have been tempered by the fact that the church was strong and vibrant. But because the church is weak, the Philistines have walked through the front door and seized control and power of our nation. Our president says he wants to change our nation. It's not change that we can afford. With the passage, listen to me, with the passage of the hate crimes legislation, we have elevated a very small minority and segment of citizens into a special status of protection. And I'm speaking of the homosexual. Now let me make something very clear here. I'm not opposed to any homosexual. Not at all. I would treat any homosexual, if I met them in the street, with the same courtesy I would treat you. But while I'm not opposed to them, I'm 100% opposed to the sin of homosexuality. I'm not opposed to the alcoholic. I'm not opposed to the drug addict. They can't help it. But I am opposed to alcohol and illegal drugs. One of the very tenets of Christianity is love the sinner, but hate the sin. Therefore, I don't hate the homosexual. I love them enough to tell them if they're sick and tired of that bondage of sin, there is one who can break that bondage and make them clean and set them free, and his name is Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. But with the passage of this hate crimes legislation, in theory, a minister of the gospel can be arrested for preaching what I'm preaching because it would be classified as hate speech. In Europe, which already has and has had for some years now, hate crime legislation, it has just about stopped every preacher from speaking on the issues of the day that's facing their country, whether it's abortion, homosexuality, or radical Islam. Just a few months ago in one of the major cities in Sweden, a pastor, a godly man, in his sermon on a Sunday morning preaching, not even preaching against homosexuality, but he just made a passing reference to it and called it a sin. Somebody went out and brought one of the tapes of that sermon. Are we taping this? Yeah, we are. And you can have all you want. Pass them out for a nominal donation. He was arrested. And I don't mean arrested and then freed on bail. They took him and put him in jail. And it was their intention of putting him in prison. And they would have, except enough Christians got sick and tired of being kicked on and spit on and pushed around. And they got together and marched on the courthouse and said, "Let the man of God out now." This bill is dangerous because its true intent is to close the mouth of the preacher of the gospel preaching against sin from behind the pulpit. But I got news for you. I don't care what laws they pass. I will not shut up. I will not tame my speech. If they arrest me, I'll preach the same message from the prison cell. God's word must be obeyed and it must be preached. says, if you want to know who I am, what I believe, what I stand for, this is a direct quote, look at those around me. Those who I have appointed to serve. So let's do that. Just for a moment. Now you're talking about an oxymoron. Listen to this. His safe school czar. Notice that title. Safe school czar is a practicing homosexual who, when he was a teacher, when a teenage student of his came to him and told him of a homosexual affair with an older man, his only response to this young man was, I hope you wore a condom. That's the safe school czar. The Philistines are running loose. One of his press aides, who has just resigned, thank God, but is still a paid consultant to the White House. In giving a speech to high school students, she made this statement. She said that Mao Zedong was one of her favorite philosophers. Now let me help you tonight. Chairman Mao was not a philosopher. He was a demon-possessed madman who murdered 70 million of his own people, including hundreds and hundreds of thousands of born-again Chinese Christians. And that's one of her favorite philosophers. My God, help us. The Philistines are running loose. His FCC czar, the FCC is the federal agency that regulates the airwaves for television and radio. When he was appointed, he publicly stated his admiration for Hugo Chavez, that Marxist, communist, socialist president of Venezuela. He's a oh, thank you. You took it right out of my mouth. Great minds think alike. He's a thug who has closed numerous newspapers and shut down radio stations and shut down television stations that are trying to speak on behalf of the people and speak for freedom. And that's the man that he admires. Not only has he stifled free speech in Venezuela, but according to the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency of America, he is now giving comfort to the drug cartels of South America and providing them safe haven and raking in millions of dollars in his pocket. And yet he's admired by this man.